Alright, welcome back. I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and this is part 2 of making the soft-sided briefcase. This is the bag we're talking about right here. We've changed how we're going to do our closure a little bit, but other than that, this bag right here is what we're doing. We're making ours for the video out of black bison, which is one of the leathers that came in the mystery box for January 2021's mystery box. So, I'll set this aside. And then meanwhile, in the background here is Travis. He's the new guy around here, and so far we might keep him. So, he did get a coffee cup, so I mean that's better than some. Some just get the paper cup. So, anyway, so when we left off on the last video, we were sewing together some of these. Let me get all the unnecessary stuff out of the way there. All right, we were sewing together these pockets right here. Okay, these are the front pockets for the bag, and we sewed the gussets onto them. Okay, so we got one, then we got two. The other thing we prepared to sew but didn't do it yet was we skived the top of the big back pocket, and I'm going to use some double-sided tape, and I'm going to roll that edge over, and we're going to sew it too. Backing off the tape there, throw it in the floor so I have to sweep it up later. Then we'll just carefully roll this edge over. Now when you do that, you want to do big increments at a time. Don't just take your finger and stick it in one area, or you'll have kind of a wavy edge to your fold there. So I usually will do at least 2 fingers wide, maybe even bigger. Sometimes I'll even take a ruler and put against it and press the whole thing over at once. But this leather's rigid enough that I don't have to worry about that. With the really floppy leathers, that's how I do it. All right, so that is folded over. Now we're going to run it through the sewing machine real quick. So I'm going to, it's easier to move the camera than it is to move the sewing machine sometimes. Alright, and I'm just going to run a stitch all the way down it. I'll back stitch at both ends, and we'll call that good. Now since this is a flat stitch, I'm going to go ahead and speed this sucker up. And we're going to get this through this machine and on to the next one. Go. Oops. Didn't finish that last stitch there. So there it is. Grab my scissors. Okay. All right, so that's pretty and stitched now. Give it a really nice finished look. Trimming off my threads here. So if I don't do it now, there's a chance I'll put it up against something later that I can't get to them to trim off, and that would be failure on my part. Alright, so now the next thing we need to do is we're going to grab one of these panels that we have decided is going to be the front panel. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be picture perfect panel, because you're going to have 2 big pockets and 2 big pocket flaps covering it up. Okay, but it needs to be nice enough piece of leather that, you know, there's nothing showing in those open areas. It's okay if there's a scar inside the pocket, or even, you know, if it's just something for yourself or whatever. I've even got bags that maybe there's a hole in them inside the pocket, because nobody will ever see it and it won't functionally hurt it. But of course I don't let things leave the shop and go to someone else like that. I just, you know, if I'm making something for me, I don't care. So anyway, so I'm going to grab kind of my second prettiest piece, which is this one right here. Whoops, sorry, nope, that's the back pocket. It was this one right here. Okay, and then what we've got to do now is we've got to figure out where we're going to put our pockets. Okay, we got 2 pockets. We're going to have room for the buckle and strap in between them. And then once we have the pockets, we're still going to have to do the flaps on top of the pockets. All right, and we've got to put the clasps on it all too. So I'm going to get some stuff together to get all that done, and we'll be right back. All right, so here is our basic hardware for this bag. Okay, we've got a nice pretty buckle. Going to go right there in the middle. Normally I'm a huge fan of brass hardware, but this bag being black, we're using all the nickel stuff. We have what's called a tuck clasp for each of the pockets. Okay, these came from Tandy, and I refuse to use crappy hardware on my stuff. These are actually really nice. They're the tuck lock clasp medium nickel plate. They're really nice. They're very good quality. They feel and look very nice. You know, the same stuff you'd see on a high-end bag. These are not cheap pieces. Okay, so yeah, it's absolutely terrible to see somebody that puts a lot of work into a nice project and then they skimp on the hardware and they use some crap, and it just takes away from all of it, you know. So anyway, there's 2 different ways and times to put this hardware on. The easiest would be if you've made a bunch of these bags to already know exactly where the hardware is going to fall once the bag is built. Since it's everyone's first time at building this bag, though, I'm going to show you how to figure it out yourself. And it does make it a little bit more difficult because we are going to sew these pockets on here first and then put the hardware on the pockets. But it'll also show you how to keep it lined up and to do a good job with your hardware. So a good learning point. All right. So we've got 2 of those, 1 for each pocket. And then we're going to have a couple of D-rings and a couple of swivel clasps, swivel snap hooks for the shoulder strap attachments. Okay. So we're going to move all this stuff over to the side. Now, we have to figure out where we're going to put these pockets. And I use the pockets as kind of a template. Since they're already cut out and everything, I'll take them and turn them upside down on the bag. Okay, and for placement here, I'm going to use a couple of these big old rulers here that I have. I'm going to put one of them at the bottom of the bag. Okay, because I want both of these pockets, I want the bottom of them to be 1 inch from the bottom of the bag. Okay, so both of them lined up right there at the 1 inch. And I'm going to move this up some so everything's not hanging off the table on me, because I'll need to leave this ruler setting right here. Now, I'm going to use my other ruler, and I'm going to set it over here on the side, and I'm going to measure 1 inch there as well, okay? So, this pocket now, this edge of it is 1 inch from the side of the bag. This bottom edge of it is 1 inch from the bottom of the bag. Okay, so what I'm going to do with that information is I'm going to carefully move both my rulers away. I'm going to grab me a scratch awl, which is like a tiny little ice pick, is all it really is, okay? Little sharp thingy-majig. I'll hold this real nice and still, and I'm going to trace around it with my scratch awl, heavy enough that I can see the impression in my leather underneath. Okay, but I'm not doing it so heavy that I might accidentally like cut the leather. I mean, this thing does have a pretty sharp tip to it, and I don't want to ruin my project. Doing it slowly because I want to do it right. Okay, if I rush through this, I'll miss my line and screw it up. Ask me how I know. Okay, and then I'm going to lift some of this to make sure that I did a nice heavy line on there that I can see, and I did. Okay, I'll bring it up and show you in a minute, but first I'm going to put my rulers back. This time I'll put this ruler on this side. Okay. And 1 inch from this edge is where this pocket's going to go. And there it is. Now, same song, different chorus. Now, that line is going to show us, one, where to put our glue on the base piece, and then two, you can see my lines there? Just barely see them. Goes along like that, and all right. So we're going to put some glue to the inside of each of the lines, okay? So you want your glue inside the pocket, not on the outside of those lines, okay? Let me find, someone has used my glue since I've been videoing. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to prep my pockets here. I'm going to fold this gusset back, and then on these corners I'm actually going to roll it over like that, so it's easier to get the glue on this other edge of this gusset. Okay, I'm going to do the same on the other pocket over here, and then I'm going to apply the glue to both this and the bag body there. Okay. Now, if you have some really high quality masking tape that won't raise the finish of your leather, you could even put some masking tape along those lines and really ensure that your glue is not going to get out of control and be in a spot that shows. The good news is a lot of these leathers that have some sheen to them, if the glue does get into the area where it'll be seen, you just wait for it to dry for a minute and then you clean it off. Okay, but you want it to set up a little bit and then it gets rubbery and you can just roll it off. So I'm just putting a little 1/4 inch bead of glue around this thing. Okay, I'm going to turn the bag so that I'm always got my brush on the inside of my area I'm gluing here. There we go. So that excess there. And then I'll put another piece right here, or another bit. Very important that you get good coverage in the corners, because that's going to be the hardest area to sew. So you really want to make sure that your glue is in those corners. If those pieces move, the corners move while you're sewing them down, you'll end up with some very uneven looking pockets. And nobody likes uneven pockets. All right, so I'll throw this aside. And I'm going to put some glue on the edges of this. I'll do one, and then I'm going to pause the camera while I do the other one and let the glue set up for a minute. And then we'll keep going. All right. So again, I did one. Just did 1/4 inch or so from the edge, and then I'm gonna pause the video. I'll get the other one when we come back. All this glue will be ready to put together. All right, get all that ready to go. So now we're just gonna carefully place our pockets where they belong. I'm gonna go straight to the top of my line here. Place my edge of my gusset right there on that line, and just press it down all the way around. Okay, it gets a little tricky in the corners. You want to follow the natural curve of the line. Don't let the gusset dictate where it's going to go. You make it lay in your line. Otherwise, again, you'll have some uneven looking pockets when it's all said and done. Nobody likes that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick one of them on, and then I'm going to sew it, and then I'll stick the other one on. And that way I don't have to worry about accidentally knocking one of them out of the way or something crazy like that while I'm sewing. Some of the leathers that are more finished and shiny, you may have had to rough it up a little bit before you applied your glue. This one is definitely one of those. I could have easily just taken a couple of minutes and applied put the rougher to it, and then I probably wouldn't have this thing sliding around like it is. But that's all right. Fight with it, and we'll get her where it goes. Check it, make sure it looks even and one side's not higher than the other or something like that, because those type of things can still happen even though we marked it, okay? And get my sewing machine over here. We're just gonna sew it down. Get my edge guide out of the way. I'm not gonna use it for this portion. These kind of gussets are the reason I love cylinder arm sewing machines. I know I've been using a lot of flatbed class 18 in some of the things I've been doing lately, but this right here is why I'm a firm believer in cylinder arms. So I'm just stitching her down as I go around that. And it's okay to let the bag hang a little bit, because that actually helps me to keep the pocket out of my way while I sew. And going around the corner, just like where we sewed it onto the top part, you want to watch out that you're not sewing any kind of bubble down into it, because that'll sure give it an ugly mark. So I'm going to spread that little bubble out some, so it doesn't get stuck under there. There we go. Keep on rocking. My sewing machine walked off my welt there, but luckily it did not. Alright, then I'll backstitch for completion here. There we go. I'm going to stick the other pocket on and do the exact same thing with it, okay? There's what we're looking at right there. You can see a little bit of my glue there. That's not a problem. I'll take that that scratch all right here, and I can easily pick that glue right out of there. And it takes a second, but we can do it, okay? So don't worry if you've got a little bit of glue seepage right there. As long as it's dry and rubberized, you can get it out.